Denizens of the night. Welcome to another episode of the Macabre, the terrifying. Tonight, I've got a special treat. A special Halloween treat, no less. Yes, I know. Halloween has passed us by this year, but it's not too far in the rear view. And I've got a story to tell you that has two parts. And you don't have to wait a week to catch part two. Now, isn't that a change of pace? Ours is a story of two Halloweens, one happening now and one from a year prior. In the past, Nixie is arriving on her first day at a scare park where everyone is running amok and things are disorganized. In the present, a mysterious killer is hunting down the workers from last year's scare park. What could have happened? And who is killing the cast? This story is called Halloween Haunt and was written by Justine Perry.
Part 1. 31st of October, now. John Joe opens the patio doors and steps out into the cool night air. He's desperate for a cigarette, and annoyed Rissa wouldn't let him smoke indoors. Now he's missing the party, just as strip poker was getting interesting. He lights up and takes a delicious drag. He's about to have a second pull when a rustle in the darkness catches his attention. The backyard is huge, and he can only make out the outline of the hedge that separates Rissa's home from its neighbor. He knows it must be an animal, but he begins to rush through his cigarette regardless. His uneasiness grows when the rustling gets louder. The animal sounds big. "Yo, could I bum a smoke?" says a voice behind him. Pete. John Joe sighs and is reaching into his pocket for the box of cigarettes when the first arrow hits, impaling his right arm. He stumbles backwards into the glass door behind him. He hears the second arrow whizzing through the air, but he doesn't have the time to fully register the sound before there's a punch to his chest, which soon grows to an all-encompassing pain. He looks down to see the rear half of a metal arrow jutting from his torso. A circle of warm blood stains his white hoodie, expanding as if alive. John Joe is half aware of Pete making high-pitched panicked noises. Pete fumbles with the mechanisms on the door handle. Pumping music escapes into the night the second he manages to rip the door open. He trips re-entering the house, calling for help in a strained yelp. But John Joe isn't aware of this, because the third arrow passes through his left eye into his brain. Pete tries to get to his feet. The alcohol coursing through his veins hinders his progress. When he finds himself standing, it takes him a moment to realize somebody pulled him up from behind. He's wrenched out of the house and flung onto the lawn. No, is all he manages to get out before the crossbow-wielding stranger fires. The arm raised in front of his face is a useless shield. The arrow travels through his hand into his brain. 31st of October. Then. After asking a zombie, a ghost, and a Mad Axeman for directions, Nixie managed to find the check-in station. "Have you done your induction?" the spotty teenager behind the table asked, in an uninterested voice. No. "Scan the QR code and complete it, then I can let you in." He pointed to a poster on the table that contained a QR code. Nixie followed the link and skimmed through the online staff safety briefing on her phone. At the end, it asked her some multiple-choice questions. A few were common sense, but others were more complicated, like which fire extinguisher should be used for each type of fire, and she couldn't remember what she had read. The teenager behind the desk saw her looking puzzled and gave her the answers. "Thanks," Nixie muttered. "The results should come through in a sec," he said, looking at his computer screen. "What's your name?" Nixie.
I can see you've passed the induction, but you're not on the staff list.
I could be down as Onyx.
Huh?
My name, Onyx. My parents thought they did something, but they didn't. If we could hurry this up, that would be great, because I'm meant to be working already. The teenager stared at his screen for what felt to Nixie like a frustratingly long time, but was only about 10 seconds.
Ah, gotcha. You're all good. Here's your staff wristband. Follow the path to the right out of here, and you'll come to the locker room. Alejandro will set you up there.
Thanks. Nixie sped-walked to the locker room, hoping this Alejandro wouldn't notice she was 5 minutes late. She entered to utter chaos. Someone was wrapping a mummy in bandages, whilst someone else used a water pistol to soak a nurse in fake blood. Nixie was thankful that, as a steward, she was simply required to wear black. She was good at fading into the background. She had to introduce herself to the man she assumed to be Alejandro 3 times before she could make herself heard. He was shouting orders at half-dressed monsters to hurry up.
Onyx, right? We've got you on the dreaded barn exit. Jen is on the entrance. She lets them in, 1 group at a time. She will let you know on the radio when a new group are in. 15 minutes later, you open the rear doors and usher them out. Let Jen know when they're out and close the doors ready for the next group. You'll be on Channel 4.
He handed her a walkie-talkie, the type she hadn't used or seen since childhood.
It's already programmed to the right channel. I'm on Channel 2 if you need to reach me, but remember to change it back to Channel 4 after. You got all that?
Yeah, I think so, she replied, but Alejandro had already rushed off to scold a pair of werewolves for messing around. A girl with bright pink hair and space buns walked in. She also wore black clothing. She shoved her backpack into a locker and collected a walkie-talkie from a table.
"Excuse me," Nixie said. "Do you know where the dreaded barn is?"
She let out a small giggle at the absurdity of her question.
"Yeah, I'm also working the barn. I'm Jen." "Nixie. Is that short for anything?"
"Onyx."
"I'm Oxygen. My parents are psychos. I'm joking. They're just cheesy. I'm the reason they breathe, apparently."
She rolled her eyes, and Nixie laughed. They walked through jack-o'-lantern-lit darkness until they reached a large wooden barn. Stacks of hay, corn stalks, and pumpkins stood outside the doors. Fake cobwebs covered the entire structure, with a few real ones thrown in for good luck.
"Here's the exit. I'll be round the other side," Jen said. "The first group will be here in 10-15 minutes. I'll let you know when they're in. Alejandro explained it all, right?" "Yeah, it seems fairly straightforward." "Radio me if you have any problems. Sometimes the groups play us up coming out if they've had a few drinks. Let me know if that happens. Don't deal with aggressive a-holes on your own." "Thanks, I will do," Nixie said.
Jen left for the other side of the barn. Nixie listened to the chatter on the radio while she waited for the first group to be admitted into the barn.
"Al, Lucy's gone sick. I could cover, but Pete will be alone in the car park. Not sure how you feel about that? Over," someone said. Typical Lucy. "Give me a second. Over," Alejandro replied. His voice came back a few minutes later. "You cover Lucy all night. John Joe can take over your position after the cavern closes. I'll have to cover until then. Over." "Got it. Thanks, Al. Over." "Nixie, I'm letting the first group through, okay? Over."
Jen's voice came through the radio.
"Roger,"
Nixie replied.
"Over,"
she added belatedly. Nixie heard footsteps inside the barn, followed by screams. The kind of excited wail where it's obvious the people crying out know there's no real danger. 31st of October, now.
"Do you want to come over?"
Lucy speaks into her phone in the sultriest voice she can muster.
"Don't you have work?" Ben replies.
"I called in sick." Naughty, naughty. Cool, I'll be over in 30. He hangs up without saying goodbye. This habit of his annoys Lucy every time, but he's hot, so she's prepared to put up with it. 10 minutes pass, and there's a knock on the door. Lucy curses under her breath. She's still fixing her hair. Ben lives half an hour away. Maybe he was already hanging out somewhere closer, but then why did he say he'd be 30 minutes? Men, she huffs under her breath. There's another knock at the door. I'm coming! Jeez, she calls. Why can't he be patient? She flings open the door in frustration, ready to reprimand him. But it isn't Ben. The blade is in and out of her heart before she knows what's happened. The visitor, dressed entirely in dark clothing, including a balaclava, turns and strides away. Lucy puts her hand to the sting in her chest, and her fingers come away red. She feels the warm liquid quickly soaking her new robe, the one she bought to impress Ben, along with matching lingerie. She stumbles back from the door and locates her phone on the arm of the couch. She calls emergency services. A woman with a kind voice tells her to stay on the line and assures her she'll be okay. She is dead before the paramedics arrive. 31st of October. Then. Everyone else in the queue was chattering excitedly. Their group felt like the odd one out due to Bella's sadness. Jake put his arm around her shoulders and pulled her against him. Bella wiped tears from her eyes, trying not to smudge her makeup. She was dressed as a black cat, her cousin Sharon as a vampire. Jake, her boyfriend of 9 months, was a bloodied American football player, and his best friend Caleb a zombie. Let's try to forget it all for one night, okay? Sharon said. I know it's selfish, but I wanted to die first one day, Bella cried. Sharon took her hand. She lost her own sibling to a car accident when she was 9, and her little brother only 4. Now, Bella's older sister had weeks to live after a long battle with cancer. Their family seemed to have the worst luck. They reached the front of the queue and bought their tickets. At Caleb's request, they immediately sought out food once inside the haunt. Bella and Sharon shared a portion of churros with chocolate and caramel dips. The boys had a box each. What do you want to do first? Jake asked Bella after they'd finished eating. How about the corn maze? Bella suggested. Let's roll! Caleb whooped. 31st of October. Now. A grand total of 2 customers come in during the last hour of Jen's shift at the vape store. She asked her manager if she could leave early, but he said no, so she was going to be late to Rissa's party. At least she didn't have to dress up and do an elaborate makeup look. Rissa didn't feel it would be right to have a full-on Halloween party on the anniversary of the accident. Jonjo said she was being too sensitive. Jen thinks Rissa made the right call, but it will be nice to hang out, especially with the haunt not happening this year. They used to see each other on the job every Halloween. Most of them helped with setup from mid-October. This year, she's reached the end of the month without seeing the crew at all. Time drags, but eventually it's time to clock out. Jen gathers her possessions and puts on her coat. The other stores in the mall have closed already. Outside the shop, she locks the front door, then presses the remote for the metal shutter. The mechanisms clatter as the shutter slowly rolls down. Jen glances around as she waits. That's when she notices the figure in front of the store directly opposite hers. They're separated only by the circular barriers of the second level, like a big round balcony. The first floor is visible below. The weirdo stands statue still, staring at her, dressed in bulky dark clothes. Their hood is up, and they're wearing a balaclava. Jen wonders if she should go back inside the store, but the metal shutter is down now. Would she be able to open it, unlock the door, get inside, and relock the door before the figure could make the semicircle run to reach her? It would be tight with the shutter moving so slowly, but it needn't be all the way up. She could duck underneath once it cleared the door handle. The other option was to make a break for the stairs, but the staircase was equal distance between them. They'd reach it at the same time. Maybe the person means no harm, or is playing a stupid Halloween prank, but it's freaking her out. She doesn't know what to do. She hits the button to raise the shutter. She'd feel safer inside. She could call Pete or John Joe to meet her. It's probably just some joker, but she'd rather not be alone with the a-hole. The shutter is a quarter of the way up, too low for her to access the door, when the figure sprints towards her. She fumbles for her phone, but she can't find it in her bag. She doesn't think she'll make it inside the store in time, so she runs for the stairs. With her pursuer behind her, she could reach the steps first, and once down there, she wouldn't be far from the main exit and the busy high street outside. She's racing down the stairs, jumping 2 or 3 steps at a time, when she realizes her pursuer isn't behind her. He, she assumes it's a man, turned around to come down via the opposite staircase. He's going to be between her and the exit. She has an idea. She spins and runs back up the stairs. She continues up the next flight of stairs to the 3rd floor, planning to lock herself in the disabled toilet. It's a single room, so she'll be safe while she finds her phone and calls the police. She cries in fear and frustration when she finds the toilet locked. The public facilities are closed for the night. She can hear her pursuer on the stairs. She runs for the door to the car park. "Help!" she shrieks as she flies onto the top layer of the multi-story parking area. She can't see anyone, and there's only a few parked cars here and there. She's sprinting down the ramp to the 2nd level of the car park when she hears her pursuer crash through the door of the 3rd level above her. She ducks behind a parked car and rummages for her phone. There are only 2 cars on this level and no other hiding places. It won't take him long to find her. Once again, abandoning the search for her phone, she races for the ramp down to the ground level of the parking garage. She can see the exit, hear voices outside. Light from street lamps leaks into the car park. The barrier is down, but she'll be able to duck underneath it. It's made to stop vehicles, not people. She risks a look back. Her pursuer is further from her than she is to the exit. She's going to make it. 31st of October. Then. "Where the hell is John Joe?" Alejandro's angry voice traveled from outside the barn. Clarissa thought forgetting their radios would be enough to escape him for 10 minutes, but obviously not. "Pete's definitely not there either. The parking lot is a free-for-all," said a crackly, quieter voice. Clarissa figured it was coming through Alejandro's radio. John Joe pulled his hand out of her bra and his tongue out of her mouth. "Damn Pete," he vented. "Allie'll have my ass. But he shouldn't have left the car parked till I got there." Rissa said, "You better get over there. The barn break's nearly over anyhow. The actors and Jen and that new girl will be back any minute." John Joe took a final puff on his cigarette, then stubbed it out while Rissa adjusted her dress. As Alejandro's irate voice faded into the distance, they hurried out of the barn, passing 2 scare actors in the doorway. "Ooh, what were you doing in there?" Jen teased with a knowing wink. Rissa stuck her tongue out and her middle finger up. Each attraction at the haunt took a break at different points throughout the night, giving the staff a chance to rest and use the bathroom without everything being closed to customers. The barn went on break last. There were no punters in the queue as the night neared its close. Rissa spun around the "Be Back Soon" sign, so it displayed the "Please queue here" message on the reverse side. "Thanks," Jen said, as Rissa turned to make her way back to the haunted woods.
She hoped Alejandro hadn't noticed she'd been gone and that Brody wouldn't snitch. She had passed his station at the corn maze on the way to meet John Joe at the barn. He was one of the few crew members she struggled to bond with. He was nice enough when he worked the staff check-in desk at the beginning of every shift, but he also seemed off with her most of the time. Maybe it's the age gap. At 17 and 26, they didn't have a whole lot in common. The new girl smiled as they passed each other at the rear side of the barn. At least she seemed friendly. Rissa was halfway to the haunted woods when she realized her lipstick must be a mess. She figured a quick detour to the locker room wouldn't hurt. 31st of October, now. Jen risks a look back. Her pursuer is further from her than she is to the exit. She's going to make it. She's meters from the barrier when the arrow strikes, piercing her neck, impaling her throat. Her fingers clutch at the weapon as she falls to the unforgiving ground. Her pursuer strides towards her nonchalantly. The chase is over. A heavy boot presses into Jen's chest as her killer, as she starts to think of him, tears the arrow from her throat. She hears the gurgle of her own blood leaving through the gaping wound. Looking up into the face of her killer, she recognizes the eyes. Shock envelops her faster than death. She tries to speak, but nothing comes out. Her consciousness fades, and she closes her eyes as if to sleep, knowing she won't wake up. 31st of October, then. A group of 4 approached the barn. Jen thought the girl with dark hair was very pretty. She heard one of the guys call her Bella, which seemed fitting. Jen removed the horizontal plank of wood that held the entrance doors closed, letting the group inside. She secured the doors behind them, putting the plank back in place. This ensured the group would leave through Nixie's door, keeping the one-way system intact and the flow of human traffic moving. "Nix, I've just let a group in. Over," Jen said into her radio. "Roger, over," replied Nixie's tinny voice. "Oh my gosh, Jen!" Jen searched for the owner of the gushing voice until she spotted a familiar cascade of red hair. "Trilby! I thought you were at uni." "I am, but I had to come back to see my Russ." She put her arm around the waist of the man beside her. She was dressed in pink, and he was wearing a bear onesie covered in talcum powder. "Love the costumes," Jen said. "Thanks," Trilby replied, giving a twirl. "We were about to get churros and hot chocolate. You want to join? Would be great to catch up." Jen knew she shouldn't, but the group would be inside for another 15 minutes. She wouldn't be long, and there was nobody in the queue for the barn. She turned the sign from "Please queue here" to "Be back soon," and hoped the public would get the message not to go into the barn. It was meant to be one group at a time. The crowds were thinning as the haunt approached closing time, and she thought it was possible nobody else would turn up for the barn anyway. Linking her arm through Trilby's, they headed for the food stalls. 31st of October, then. "My brother fell in the woods. I think his leg is broken. We've got no phone signal. Please help us." The woman sounded panicked. "Where is he?" "I'll show you." The woman started running before Nixie could respond. "Hey, wait!" she called out, but the woman didn't hear. She hadn't specified if her brother was hurt in the haunted woods, one of the attractions, or the general woods that surrounded the event site. If she lost sight of the woman, they'd have no idea where to find the injured man. Nixie wasn't confident enough to work the radio while running, and she knew basic first aid, so she figured the best course of action was to go with the woman and radio Alejandro once she could provide an exact location. She followed the woman into the haunted woods. Where was the person meant to be manning the entrance? The brother wasn't far from the beginning of the trail. He was sitting up, clutching his ankle. It reminded her of Peter Griffin when he trips and spends a long time being dramatic on the ground.
"Hi, I'm Nixie," she told him.
"Nate,"
he replied in a breathy voice. Nixie peeled up his jeans to look at the injury. His ankle was swollen, but it didn't look broken. She asked him if he could do various movements. He managed, but was clearly in pain.
"I think it just needs rest," she told him. "But I'd recommend you get checked out at the hospital to be safe. Do you think you can stand? I could radio my colleague to see if we have a wheelchair."
"I'll try to get up."
With the help of Nixie and his sister, he got to his feet. Together, they were able to get him to the car.
"I assume you're the driver?"
Nixie asked the sister.
"Yeah, I'll take him to the ER. Thank you so much for your help."
Nixie wondered if she needed to tell Alejandro what happened before they left, but the woman was already in the driver's seat. She was about to call out, asking them to wait. That's when she heard the screams.
Oh dear. The screams? What a cliffhanger. Normally, this is where I'd gloat and taunt you about having to wait an entire week to hear part 2. But guess what? You don't. Part 2 will be on Justine's YouTube channel in 24 hours. I'll put a link on screen for our YouTube viewers and include a link in the show notes for our podcast listeners. Justine is a horror author who partners with an ensemble of horror narrators to bring her stories to life on her channel. Once you've finished part 2, please check out some of her other stories and subscribe to make your feed a little more frightful. Whatever you do, keep your walkie-talkie close at hand and on Channel 4. And don't fall asleep.